The Dragon Ball franchise is no stranger to powerful abilities. The ability to control the energy known as Ki gives the characters access to a variety of incredibly powerful techniques. In addition to that, certain characters also possess magic, psychic powers, and abilities that come from their own biology. But what are some of the most overpowered abilities introduced in the franchise up until the current age of Dragon Ball Super? Well, in this video, I'm going to list those off. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you can see all of my content right away when it comes out. Hey guys, it's Mike here, and as I've discussed in many other videos, one of my favorite aspects of Dragon Ball and fiction in general for me is the exploration and usage of superhuman abilities, otherwise known as superpowers. The Dragon Ball story has some abilities that would make their characters incredibly overpowered in other fictional worlds. So I'm going to be listing off some of the most overpowered in no particular order. I'm also going to throw in a couple that I feel like most people don't really talk about on these lists, but in actuality are some of the most powerful in the entire franchise. So let me begin with the first one on this list, which has been made even more relevant in the current arc of the Galactic Patrol Prisoner arc in the Dragon Ball Super manga, and that is energy absorption and collection. Now, this ability was first made popular in Dragon Ball during the Cell Saga, in which we are first introduced to androids 19 and 20. Despite already being incredibly powerful compared to most of the Z fighters, the most fearsome ability of androids 19 and 20 was the ability to absorb energy from other people through the devices built into their hands. This allowed them to convert the Ki into their own pure energy and make themselves even more powerful as a result. In Dragon Ball GT, Super Android 17 also possessed this ability, which he used to great effect against the Z fighters. And of course, in the newest arc of the Dragon Ball Super manga, the villain Moro also possesses this ability, however taking it to the biggest extreme we've seen yet, by channeling his inner Galactus and actually feeding upon the energy from planets and all of the life forms on them. And he was even able to drain all of the energy out of Goku and Vegeta without them noticing, which made it where they couldn't transform, and easily fell victim to his power. But then there's the aspect of Ki collection, with its most popular application coming through the use of the Spirit Bomb technique, the Genki Dama, which was taught to Goku by King Kai during his training in the Saiyan Saga, where Goku gathers the Genki, or life energy, from people, nature, and even inanimate objects, and combines it into an incredibly powerful attack that can defeat even stronger fighters than Goku himself, or give him a pretty significant boost in power, if he's able to absorb it, which also ties into the ability of sharing energy, which was used most notably in the original Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan movie, in which everyone shared their energy with Goku, allowing him to essentially one-shot Broly, an ending that I know a lot of people don't like to this very day. But speaking of incredibly powerful attacks, the next one I'm going to talk about is one that always has to be included on this kind of list, and that is the Devil Might Beam, which was used by Spike the Devil Man during the Fortune Teller Baba tournament in the original Dragon Ball. As it was explained by the Devil Man, if you possess any evil within your heart or any evil thoughts within your mind, and he attacks you with the Devil Might Beam, it instantly destroys you. Considering how many incredibly powerful villains showed up after this point in the story, and brought our characters to the brink of death time and time again, you would think that they would have enlisted the Devil Man to one-shot each and every one of these villains. Vegeta, Frieza, and maybe even characters like Majin Buu and Cell would be instantly destroyed by this technique, assuming that it's not limited by power level. But I guess he was too busy on vacation in hell or something. But while we're on the topic of incredibly powerful abilities in the original Dragon Ball, we have to talk about something that ties into the next ability on this list of magical transmutation. And that would have to be Boss Rabbit's Magic Touch, or Carrot Transformation, in which he can literally turn anyone he touches into a carrot, as well as reversing it by clapping his hands together. He might not be that strong on his own, but this is really a game-changing technique that, much like the Devil Might Beam, could have really come in handy against some of the other fighters that show up after the original Dragon Ball. Although we do get something pretty similar to this in the Buu Saga that also ties into the greater theme of magical transmutation, and that would have to be the Candy Beam, which Majin Buu utilizes to literally turn entire cities full of people into candy. All he has to do is specify exactly what he wants to turn them into, be it chocolate, jawbreakers, or even an egg, which he turned Chi-Chi into before stepping on it. And this worked pretty much every time that he used it, except for in the case of Vegito. But there's also less malevolent versions of this, such as the ability that Piccolo uses that fans like to dub the Clothes Beam. Although I'm sure that if he wanted to, he could use it to put some really heavy clothing on his enemy, and proceed to beat them down while they're too heavy to even move. But speaking of Piccolo, one of the most powerful abilities that I've seen in the entire Dragon Ball story up until this point would have to be something that Piccolo Daimao utilized in the original Dragon Ball. And that would be the ability of self-reincarnation. Now, during the climax of the King Piccolo arc of Dragon Ball, Goku was able to defeat Piccolo by flying through his body, which naturally killed him. However, before he died, he was able to create an egg which contained the body of his son, who was actually his own reincarnation, Piccolo Jr., which means that King Piccolo was able to circumvent the entire process of the afterlife in normal reincarnation in Dragon Ball, which is an incredible feat of power. And unlike with a normal reincarnation, Piccolo Jr. retained the memories and powers of his father, and continued his plot for world domination and his vendetta against Goku. Now, it's unclear if this ability was only something that Demon King Piccolo could utilize, or if perhaps his son could do so as well, but even though his son is essentially a different person through the method of reincarnation, if Piccolo or another character was capable of doing this, this ability in a roundabout way would give them essential immortality, as whenever their body would be destroyed, they could reincarnate themselves, carry over their memories and powers, and start over again. Although now perhaps with even more potential than before. And continuing with the theme of Piccolo, let's talk about another ability which he and some of the other more powerful villains of the Dragon Ball franchise possess, and that would have to be regeneration. Due to Piccolo's Namekian physiology, whenever a limb or a body part is destroyed, he and other Namekians have the ability to regrow and completely regenerate entire body parts. With Piccolo's most impressive feat of regeneration coming in the Buu Saga when Trunks accidentally shattered his statue. However, Piccolo was able to quickly regenerate all of the damage. However, Piccolo's regeneration is limited compared to some of his other counterparts, as if his head is damaged or partially destroyed, he's not able to regenerate that. However, in the case of the villain Cell, his regeneration is even better than Piccolo's, as he can completely regenerate his entire body so long as a cluster of cells within his head or his essential core remains intact, which we saw after he self-destructed in the Cell Saga. However, just like with Piccolo, this regeneration takes up energy. So as we saw when Goku blasted the top half of Cell's body off, regenerating from something like that takes up a considerable amount of energy. But then there's also the regeneration of a character like Buu, which is magical in nature, and is so advanced that he can even regenerate from being turned to dust. And with Kid Buu, who seemingly has endless stamina, this can cause him to be nearly unkillable, except with an extreme attack or an ability such as the Spirit Bomb. But while we're on the subject of abilities that had a lot of prominence in the Buu Saga, let's discuss the next ability on this list, which is Fusion. Now, of course, the ability in which two or more characters combine into a single body didn't originate in the Buu Saga. After all, we can go back to the Frieza saga of Dragon Ball Z and see that Piccolo utilizes this ability to merge his body with Nail, which gives him a massive boost in power, allowing him to surpass Frieza's second form. He also uses this to reunite with Kami, which makes him even more powerful than Super Saiyan Goku and Vegeta. But of course, the most popular versions of Fusion in the Dragon Ball franchise are those that utilize the Memories Fusion Dance, which Goku learned in the afterlife, and the Potara earrings, which are given to Goku by the old Supreme Kai, and allow two fighters to fuse together permanently. Or at least it was supposed to be until Dragon Ball Super changed that. Now, ever since Potara and Dance Fusion were introduced to Dragon Ball, audiences have been debating which one is more powerful. It seems like they've been debating it behind the scenes as well, because it seems like every time a new guidebook, promotional material, or Q&A comes out, it says something different. That Gogeta is stronger, that Vegito is stronger, or more recently, that both of them are equal. but obviously it depends upon the arc and how powerful Goku and Vegeta are at the time, considering the fact that Gogeta from the Broly movie is no doubt more powerful than Vegeta would have been when he fought Merged Zamasu. You can even argue that Goku and Vegeta individually in the Tournament of Power were more powerful than Vegeta from the previous arc, and that just comes down to how ridiculous some of the boosts in Dragon Ball Super have been. And then there's even robotic fusion, which we saw in Super Android 13, in which he absorbed the components of the other androids, and then we saw again in the Tournament of Power with Universe 3, in which the different robotic fighters fused together and created Anilaza, which of course also gives them a big boost in power. Although I do think it would have been a lot cooler if they turned into something more like the Megazord from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but instead we basically got a fusion of Hachiyak and Janemba, and not really as cool as either of them. Next up, I want to discuss another really powerful ability that can take a character like Master Roshi, who is much weaker than his opponents, and allow him to still defeat them. This ability is Sealing Techniques. Of course, as we saw in Dragon Ball, Master Mutaido, the master of Roshi and the Crane Hermit, invented the Mafuba in order to defeat King Piccolo, who is more powerful than either him or his students. However, this ability comes at a great cost, as you typically trade your life for the sealing, which also happened with Roshi. Although as we saw in the anime version of the King Piccolo arc, Tien survived this process. And we also saw this take place in the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai, in which Kami used the ability to try and seal away Piccolo Jr. However, Piccolo Jr. came up with his own counter Mafuba that sealed away Kami instead. And then years later, we saw this happen in the Future Trunks arc of Dragon Ball Super, in which Goku trains with Master Roshi for a day to learn the move, and then Trunks learns it in about 5 minutes on a cell phone from watching Piccolo do it, which is totally within the realm of suspension of disbelief, like half the other things that happen in that arc. And then of course we saw Master Roshi use it over and over and over again in the Tournament of Power. And despite the fact that the last time he used it he died, and that he had already been fighting for a while at this point, he still didn't die, and was healed good as new, which kinda takes away a lot of the danger of the move. However, beyond this, there are other sealing techniques, such as what happened between Beerus and Old Kai millions of years before Dragon Ball Super takes place, in which the Gods of Destruction and the Kais came together for a meeting, and the Old Kai did something to annoy Beerus. But instead of Beerus destroying him, he rather sealed him within the Z-Sword, which was eventually broken open during the Buu Saga. And naturally, this sort of ability is also pretty overpowered. I mean, imagine if Merged Zamasu or Jiren tried to fight Beerus, and he could just put them in a sword. It would kind of take away a lot of their danger, even if they were more powerful than him. And the same thing goes for Whis, who explained that he also has some kind of sealing technique of his own that's even greater than the Mafuba, although we still haven't seen this in use. But considering that he's even more powerful than Beerus, I'm guessing it would work on pretty much every character, except for maybe some of the other angels, his father, and the Zenos. But speaking of strength, there is another incredibly powerful technique, which was introduced in the Saiyan saga of Dragon Ball Z, and that is the Kaioken, which was invented by Kaio-sama, otherwise known as King Kai. However, only Goku thus far has really been able to utilize the move, and to great effect, and this ability allows Goku to amplify his power by a stated number. And not only can he do this in his base form, but he can also make himself in his strongest form of Super Saiyan Blue up to 20 times stronger. And considering that in Dragon Ball, a difference in power of even 2 times can be massive, just imagine if you increase that gap by 5, 10, or 20 times. However, as we know, this move does have a significant drawback in that it damages the body of whoever is using it, especially if you push it to levels which you're not yet comfortable with, which we saw happen when Goku fought Vegeta. And as I discussed in my video decoding the Kaioken in Dragon Ball, the applications of this move could be really significant if other fighters were to also use it, such as someone like Tien possibly using it to increase the power of his Tri-Beam, or Piccolo splitting himself in two and then using the Kaioken to make both halves equal to the original. But who knows if anyone other than Goku will ever have this ability. And this leads into the next ability that I'm going to be discussing on this list, which is also the reason why Goku stopped using the Kaioken for so long, because this ability gives him and the other Saiyans a significant boost in power without needing the use of the Kaioken. and that is the Saiyan transformations. So naturally, there's the Super Saiyan form, which has continued to see use even up to right now in Dragon Ball Super. This is a form that gives Goku a 50 times boost from his base form, but one of its greatest strengths is its ability to evolve. As we saw during the Cell Saga, Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, and Future Trunks all unlocked higher grades of the form. There was Super Saiyan Grade 2 and Grade 3, which made them bulkier and increased their strength. However, it also came with greater stamina drain and caused them to become slower, which is why they eventually went the route of mastering it with Grade 4, which retained the 50 times multiplier, but also reduced stamina drain to the very minimum. However, that wasn't all, as Gohan would go on to unlock Super Saiyan 2 during his fight against Cell, which Goku and Vegeta would also unlock during the years afterward, as well as Super Saiyan 3, which Goku achieved in the afterlife. And then as we saw in Dragon Ball GT, Goku and Vegeta also achieved the form of Super Saiyan 4, where they first would transform into a Golden Ozaru, or Great Ape, which was the original Saiyan transformation that we saw all the way back in the first arc of Dragon Ball, with a Super Saiyan color scheme, and then they compressed all of that power down into what I would say is the best designed form so far. But then Dragon Ball Super went a different route, as Goku underwent a ritual that allowed him to achieve Super Saiyan God, where all of his energy was converted into God Ki, and he was able to give Beerus, the God of Destruction, an entertaining fight. And then eventually, he and Vegeta took this form to the next level, achieving what is essentially described as a Super Saiyan God who becomes a Super Saiyan, otherwise known as Super Saiyan Blue. However, much like some of the earlier forms, this one comes with a drain in stamina. Whether that comes from transforming itself or being in the form is something that Dragon Ball Super went back and forth on. But either way, it makes their power incredibly more so than it was in the past. And naturally, being Saiyans, they even went on to achieve even more powerful forms than this, with Vegeta achieving his Super Saiyan Blue evolution, which put him on par with Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken x 20 Goku. So these forms are incredibly overpowered, and one of the biggest reasons why the other characters have had such a hard time keeping up with Goku and Vegeta, oftentimes to the detriment of the show. However, there is one other ability, which is both similar to the Kaioken and the Super Saiyan forms, that has also been given a lot of shine in Dragon Ball Super, especially the Tournament of Power. And that's an ability which even the gods themselves struggle with attaining, and that is Ultra Instinct, which allowed Goku to bring out his deep instinctual power and energy reserves, as well as give him mastery of self-movement, which allows him to dodge an attack without being slowed down by thought. Although it was a little ridiculous that Goku was basically able to master this ability within the course of 48 minutes, the fact of the matter is that this ability took Goku from jobbing to Jiren at a low percentage of his power, to being able to defeat him even after he unlocked his own hidden power. Now, although episode 130 did kinda go out of its way to demystify this and make it seem less overpowered, as all Jiren had to do was scream and raise his power to be able to land blows on Goku and nearly have him defeated at one point, but still, considering the build up to this with the foreshadowing all the way back in Resurrection F, and the fact that even Beerus is incapable of utilizing it, and he's been training for millions of years, shows you just how overpowered this ability is meant to be. So much so that they basically took it away from Goku the second that he mastered it. I think somebody needs to tell Toei and Toriyama that mastered doesn't mean what they think it means.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
But considering just how powerful it made Goku, and could seemingly make Vegeta or anyone else who attains it, this ability certainly has to go down as one of the most overpowered in the entire Dragon Ball franchise. Alright guys, so these have been 10 of the most overpowered abilities in Dragon Ball Super. Are there any others that you can think of? Let me know down below. Maybe I'll even make a follow-up someday. Also, if you're new to this channel, then don't forget to subscribe and enable notifications so that you can see all of my videos right away when they come out. And if you like this video, then make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.